Usually, good evening.
Good evening.
So I've finished this book. I have been reading again. It's got to that time in the year when I cannot focus on anything more complicated than Doctor Who books. And yet even this Doctor Who book has bamboozled me to a certain extent for reasons that will become clear. I picked this one up because I have many of this, sequence of Doctor Who books, I don't know what the right term is. And obviously this has got Martha in, and we've been thinking a lot about Martha recently. But also it's got the Zygons in, yay! And you've got to remember at this point in Doctor Who's history, the Zygons were one of those baddies that hadn't come back. So alongside maybe the Draconians, they were perhaps one of the most notable aliens that hadn't made a return appearance. So I thought, blow it, I'll read this. Stephen Cole's done loads of Doctor Who books. I can't think of a single one of them right now, which is perhaps indicative of the standing that he has within Doctor Who fandom. You would think that I, having read so many Doctor Who books, I'm just terrible at remembering things like that. And this is by no means, a diss on Steve Cole, but this is not the greatest Doctor Who book that I've ever read. That doesn't matter, because I've had a lovely time reading it, and it's exactly what I've needed right now, especially given that the other thing I'm reading is a graphic novel that basically tells us how the world's on the brink of environmental collapse and we're all going to die. So that's very exciting. But this, on the flip side, is a very charming Doctor Who book. Now, if I was to critique it, which I'm about to do, I'm going to say this. I personally feel it's a mistake, if you're going to do a Zygon story, to set it in not quite Loch Ness, which is where this book is set. It is not quite Loch Ness. We're actually in the Lake District, I think, which is a very pleasant place to be. But one can easily, when reading it, forget that not everybody has a Scottish accent. And I kind of feel if you're going to do Zygons, be brave enough to go the extra mile and do them in a different setting, which is, of course, what will eventually happen in the series. Not that I've seen it, because that's the rules of the Whoathon. But eventually, we'll do Zygons in contemporary England, and it will be a gritty conspiracy-type thriller. I'm not counting Day of the Doctor in this. They're just there for as a tip of the hat to the fans. The next critique I've got of this book is that I feel that the character of Martha, Lib's going to love this, who doesn't normally get to sit on these videos.
Shit.
No, she's generic companion in this.
She's generic companion in everything.
Which I think is a great shame. I think Stephen Cole has basically written the companion part, and whilst now and again I could hear Freema doing the lines, and I could hear her intonation and this, that and the other in what Stephen Cole had written for her to say, it was clumsy, and I don't think Doctor Who, because, I do think Doctor Who is progressive, and I do think Doctor Who should challenge, as it eventually is going to do in the series much more often, and has done all the way through its history, should challenge when we drop people in separate places. And let's be honest, it would get somewhat tedious both for the character and for the audience if every time Martha rocked up in the past somebody made reference to her ethnicity. But the fact that she's in... Now, where are they? Do you know, I don't even know the year. 20s? 1909. And she's rocking about in the Lake District. You would think that this would crop up in conversation, or there would be something about that. And this is another reason why I think setting it here doesn't quite stack up. I'm not entirely sure I want a big treaty on race relations in 1909 because Martha's there. But equally, I think it's disingenuous to think that this wouldn't provoke some sort of response. By the by, let us move on. I think the characterisation of Tennant in this is good, if not great. I think it slightly leans into some of the more surface-level tropes of Tennant's Doctor, as opposed to what makes Tennant Tennant. But on the flip side, especially the bits when he's actually in the Zygon spaceship, I thought that was very Tennant-y. I enjoyed all that kind of thing, and that was proper good fun. Where this book does stand up, though, is I very much enjoyed the... what he's done with the Zygons, because, as I say, the Zygons are one of the more interesting aliens. The aliens you want to come back are not the ones that were just the two-dimensional baddie of the week. They feel as if they've got a bit more about them. And the Zygons certainly fall into that category. So even though by this point in Terror of the Zygons we've just got a group of Zygons wanting to take over the world, yet there's something about them that makes them feel a bit more special than that. That comes through in this. They've got their own problems. You feel that there's variety in their outlooks, individuals. You think that there's a bit of factions that you could play around with, and the book toys around with that to a certain extent, as it turns. Well, no spoilers, but that certainly comes through, and I really, really appreciate it. I thought that was really good. On the flip side, and this might have more to do with the fact that I'm just not very clever at this time of the year, I did kind of get lost in the whole sort of, so which Zygon are you on this side? And you're the Broton equivalent. It's so weird, I can remember the lead Zygon's name in Terror of the Zygons. It's probably to do with the fact that I had a fanzine as a kid. Which had the headline on the front. Broton ate my croton, which I've never ever forgotten. It just kills me to this day. I'm going to find it and just do a video where I hold it up. Broton ate my croton. Anyway, none of the Zygons in this marvellous, pretty good book have the same aide memoir as Broton ate my croton. So I can't at any point think of any of them. But that's fine, whatever. I enjoyed the traipsing about. I enjoyed the driving around in cars. I enjoyed the fact that, there's a big spoiler, but that Zygons have a different shape-shifting ability that I saw coming, but was still quite fun when it actually happened. So basically, yes, thank you, Stephen Cole, for writing a book that's kept me chipper, even though in the grand echelon of Doctor Who books, it's not going to feature in my reread list. Not that I've seen the amount of books on that shelf, I'm never going to get around to rereading anything. Well, it's got Zygons in. He hates Zygons. It's the Doctor Who baddie he's most terrified of, which is interesting. That shape-shifting thing to Humphrey, he doesn't like any notion of that kind of thing. I think there are better Doctor Who books out there for Humphrey. Only Human, the last one I read, I think, has got a bit more to it, and all this and the other. Anyway, I can't do a Matt Smith book next, because I've been going in order. Skipping over from McGann, for reasons mentioned last time. So I'm going to have to do a different book, because I'm not going to rush it and just get to Matt Smith, and I'm going to need another Doctor Who book. What Doctor should I read?
I think you should read some of Malcolm Tucker's Doctor.
Capaldi?
Yeah.
I can't go further than the Whoathon.
Oh. In that case, why don't you enjoy some more Colin Baker, because he's my favourite.
Job done. I'll read a Colin Baker book. See you next time. Bye-bye.